Eh? Evening, everybody. How we doing? How we doing? So, this was the last trade that I took today. Um, just no drawdown on this freaking trade. Probably like that first candle. While it was forming, there was some drawdown, but not as like after this candle closed, not a single candle in drawdown. Uh, but I did take another trade before this one, which ended up being a loss. And I can kind of give you an idea of what that looked like by showing you my executions really quick. So you can see first trade there, got stopped out. Entered a little bit after, I got stopped out. And my entry was actually where my first stop loss was, like really close, like 3 points off, something like that. Um, then I took a partial and then fully closed at all-time highs. So yeah, I'm gonna be going over what I saw in terms of price action today. So we're gonna go back to where I was watching price, which was, I think I started watching at like 8:30 EST probably, maybe something like that. Yeah, but we'll look at our volume profile because we're also looking at that. Before I show you guys that, I just want to talk about what I was seeing, right? So at first, my context was, in terms of the previous day's range statistic, it was pretty neutral because the daily candle of, I believe today's was Wednesday. So yeah, Tuesday broke both sides of London. Tuesday broke both sides of Monday. So you don't really have uh, a one directional, a single directional stat. Yeah, like you don't have a stat there. It's just neutral. True day open was, what was it? It was like here. It was here. So we had true day open, midnight open, whatever you want to call it. We had it there. Just make sure I mark that out right. Yeah. So obviously, London had traded through it. Pre-market was just hovering over it, and then I was kind of liking what I was seeing in terms of shorts initially. So I had a I could frame both sides. I feel like that's something that played to my advantage. Because when you can frame both sides, you're more likely to tell yourself, I want to be really patient until I see something as clear as day to frame a trade and take it. Right? So, right, yesterday we just sold off. I think some people saw some opportunity here to follow the trend. I really didn't. I just sat in my hands and watched it just melt. I did notice near the end of the day that we held this new week opening gap. We swept Monday's low, which is just session reopen, into that new week opening gap. Held it once, twice, like 3 times, and we were just sustaining there, right? So I'm like, okay, yesterday's sell-off, and I wrote this down in my notes. Yesterday's sell-off could just be a pullback for us to make new all-time highs later this week, and I put in parentheses, maybe even today, which was something that was kind of far-fetched because if you look at where we are now in pre-market, right, all-time highs is like 200 points away. Pretty extensive move. Previous day's low, on the other hand, seemed like a more attainable target, right? 78 points away. So I was like, okay, it looks like we respected the new week opening gap along with the support zone, which is a low volume node with a bunch of 1 hour fair value gaps. And then I also noted that on the other hand, we have a couple 1 hour bearish fair value gaps. So the first one right here and the second one right here. Along with some low volume modes that we need to work through in order to make new all-time highs. And I also noticed that we had a SMT where NQ swept Asia lows, but ES didn't. Okay, so that was my first kind of thing, and yeah, I was kind of seeing, okay, you know, we've swept London high, we swept Asia low on NQ, not on ES, but then I also noticed we had another SMT. We had an SMT up here with London highs. So I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen here? If you have SMTs on both sides, it's kind of a sign for you to be cautious, right? Because you're not sure where price is gonna go. So, with that in mind, what you kind of want to try to do is just follow momentum. I feel like reversals when you have SMTs on both sides, um, they're harder to catch. So at first I was like, you know what? Because of how we're accumulating in pre-market and the overnight session, it just looks rangy. Um, Even if we look at a volume profile, yeah, right here. Looking at a volume profile, a very tight range, right? We're sustaining between the value area high, value area low. If we get below it, we get right back up above it, and it's just bouncing between there. So ideally, right? I was like thinking in terms of how often do we break out of the value area and continue in that direction, right? I want to say it's not that often, but with Nasdaq lately, with new all-time highs context, it's been pretty often. But yeah, just kind of had that in the back of my mind, like, okay, like, if we play for longs, um, off of a break of the value area high, we're probably like, it's probably risky. We would have to wait for a retest, blah blah blah. So I was like, okay, like I want to be patient. And then my first thought was, you know, I like shorts, so it looked like we were respecting this first 1 hour gap, and then it's also a 1 hour breaker. It's a low volume node, so at first I'm like, okay, it looks like we're respecting it. We could take shorts from here towards previous a slow. Off open, I wanted to see NQ sweep London high, maybe potentially hit this 50-minute gap. So we're gonna probably just remove the SMTs. We're kind of aware of them because they're not giving us a clear direction. But yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind. I also noticed ES had already traded into that 50-minute gap, so I was like, interesting. But yeah, London low was still a target on both indices, indices, whatever. Pre-stage low was also a target on both, and yeah, ES was also holding that 1 hour gap. So yeah, um, that's kind of what I was hoping for initially, and also like trade open. I was like, okay, maybe we just trade into the value area high, point of control, upper view up end, trade open. They're all in alignment. Maybe we get a sweep of London high, so it would have to be like a clear sweep. So coming into morning, we get this, right? So that first candle did sweep London high and reach the 50-minute gap. And the first thing that I noticed off of this was actually, let me see if I can get this here. To show, yeah, I saw a low volume node, so I'm like, okay, we're displacing through this, I'm getting acceptance. Let's see if we get a retrace. This dude decided to do like the smallest of retraces. Yeah, it was right there. So I was looking at it in the 5 minute, when we first got up here, kind of showed a bit of rejection, but I'm like, this is really close to market open. I don't want to take something now. Buck bump was looking nice, but I'm like, you know what? Market open's going to be extremely volatile. I saw a lot of sellers here, like a lot of sellers, and price was just not heading lower at all. So I'm like, hands off. let's wait and see what happens. Okay. So I saw this low volume node and I'm like, okay, cool. We also have New York VWAP, which is barely has any data on it, right? But we have that low volume node marked out. I believe I also have a picture of it, so I can show you here what that looked like. Yeah, you can see the low volume node in the session volume profile, the current range volume profile. So clear low volume node, clear displacement, strong buyers. You could see that tiny bit that got into it. Maybe that's your entry. But for me, I wanted to wait for price to actually, move away from that first, then actually retest it. And we didn't quite get the retest. This is all the retrace we got. We retested New York VWAP, the upper VWAP end, and that was it. Then we continued higher. I think my first entry was, I can't quite remember. If I can maybe bring it up over here. And I have two different videos, so we can look at that. It was at around 10:25. It was at around 20:25. So yeah, I'm gonna try to get that going. So my entry, I'll mark it out. That's 10:25, so we know when it's coming up. But I was just watching, and price just continued higher, right? And this is kind of when I was starting to look for an entry. And from my trade, if you see here, I had a very small low volume node, and it was that small because it was also a zero print. Very rarely do you get zero prints without news, which is just strong displacement that sellers, or in this case it's strong buyers, so sellers didn't really get a chance to participate in that price. So it comes as a zero print on the selling side. So you'd expect to see some form of confluence in those types of low volume nodes. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw failed selling and steady buyers coming in. So we'll remove this. We know this is where we took our first entry. It was like here. We'll say this is a bullish FEG. And this is like a rough estimate of where it was. So I'll mark it out as a low volume node. And we'll put it at the bottom, otherwise we won't see it. Ideally, I wanted to wait for this retrace. We ended up not getting that. We displaced through true day, so all of those are irrelevant now. This actually now becomes a support zone because we broke past it. This you could also consider a support zone. So yeah, that, and we're still kind of holding that resistance zone, that low volume, from a higher time frame, because it doesn't look like much low volume here. This does look like low volume here, which I actually didn't notice in the moment, but I figured, we inversed it, I'd expect to hold that as support. So yeah, that's what I wrote down, that we inverted this bearish low volume node and expected it to hold as support. So these turned into areas of support, and I believe I entered close to here. And just double check really quick. Yeah, I actually entered there. Okay, so I'm gonna do a rough estimate of where I entered. My entry was here, my stop was at this wick, and I was targeting all-time highs. Okay, so this was my first entry, and I entered in during the formation of this candle. So obviously it's not at the candle close, it's a bit lower. I just saw steady buyers coming in. I'm like, okay, cool, this low volume node is getting defended. We barely tapped that upper VWAP band, and we also tapped this 5-minute bearish fair value gap. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna put the stop at this wick because if this is not gonna push um, the initial balance high, which is because now at this time, right, we're closing in on like once this candle closed, our IB has set, right? So that's what I was looking at. Our IB has set. Let's see if we can actually get a break of the IB high. Unfortunately, that ended up not happening. Our point of control moved higher, and we just failed to push, and ended up getting stopped out on this candle. Boop. There we go. So, what happened here? It's whatever, you know. I think the problem with this trade is that my entry was a bit late because it is a low volume node um, based off bookmap. So usually these type of zones, these big zones, I have marked out off of the volume profile on TradingView. And these low volume nodes that I mark out intraday are marked out in bookmap. So intraday low volume nodes, they're pretty strong. If they hold, it's like you want to get in like right at the low volume node. So maybe something you could have done was maybe limit order at the low volume node, maybe something like that. Limit order there and stop there. Like have very tight stop, and even just going for like a small structural point gives you a solid R. Very scalp type of trade, like a very scalping type of trade, because you're targeting an internal high. This is probably like just a high in 1 minute or something. But yeah, you want to be in closer to the wick. Very tight stop, so you be wrong quick. So yeah, that's pretty much all I could say about this trade. Should have just done better in terms of entry. That's all it was. Could have had a better entry. Didn't. All good. So I'm like, okay, cool. What can we retrace to here? I'm like, I'm confident we're going to hit all-time highs. Remember how I initially said we were 200 points away from it? At this point, we're only like 93 points away. We've shown strong buyers. Our CVD was in the thousands, like 4,000 or something. So I'm like, all right, well, I'd expect new all-time highs to be made today. I was just confident in my draw, because I didn't see price potentially reversing all the way lower to what hit London lows, pre-day low. Because at this point, what would price have to do? It would have to dump through all these gaps, make a 150 point move to hit London lows, and if it wanted to hit previous day's low, it would have had to made a almost 200 point move to the downside. It's more attainable for us to target all-time highs. On top of that, our IB highs at second. That's another statistical confluence that we can use. And I'm like, okay, at this point, when we're close to this VWAP, this is what I was seeing on Bookmap, and I'll show you really quick. Bit of a spoiler alert, but I saw just price stalling out, and I saw a lot of buying. Like I saw, big red bubbles, big buyers, whatever. I was seeing heavy buying, so I'm like, cool. What now? So I saw heavy buying coming in. I saw our CVD was increasing. I'm like, all right, I want to see something clear, either a manipulation leg or just us breaking out. That's what we ended up getting, right? Buyers breaking out of that range, right? So I think we got it in this next candle. Yeah, in this next candle, you can see we clearly tapped that New York VWAP. It's New York VWAP, and we swept this 5-minute low into this gap, so that makes it an intermediate low. Barely tapped this new 5-minute gap, this no wick candle, and I believe this probably was, I want to say 30-minute. Yeah, tap the 30-minute gap. At this point, we've invalidated that 1 hour gap. We've even invalidated the 4 hour gap, right? So I had a lot of high time frame confluences. I just needed to find an entry. I believe this was a good enough retrace for me, and my entry was on freaking point for this trade. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Yeah. So there's my entry. Now this is sped up, so obviously it's gonna be very quick. But you can see that I entered in the formation of that candle, and the reason why I was able to do that is because I had bookmap, right? So I saw this. I saw buyers accumulating orders. I saw CVD steadily increasing. So I saw buyers were coming in. I just needed to actually see them break out. I didn't want to see them fail and for us to head lower. Then I would have probably been a bit more patient. When I saw this bit of failed selling, I'm like, interesting, okay. But if CVD is still increasing, and then once we finally got that breakout is when I entered. So if we look at here, 187.50, that was my entry. 187.50, that was my entry, and my stop was down here, 27-point stop, and I was going for all-time highs. So let me see here, 3.18 RR. So I entered there, okay, and this it just ended up playing out very well. We hit that 0.1. That's where I scaled the first part of my position. We can mark it out like this, 246.75. That's correct. So I'll mark it out as a mark. Now I'll put it in all caps. Took partials, and I took most of my position off at this point. The reason why I did so is because at this point, that's a 2R. It was enough for me to cover the initial loss and just let that runner go to all-time highs. But I did want to give it some room to breathe, and we'll get into what I did for that in just a second. But this kind of took a little bit longer, and then we finally ended up getting full TP. Opened this trade at 10:55, or during the formation of that candle, and ended up closing it at 12:15. Took a long freaking time. Like an hour, 20 minutes, probably. Something like that. But yeah, I think I did a good job in staying patient with this trade. Entry was damn near perfect. Waited to see something clear on the order flow that would let me, hop on the trade. Also, I don't know if I mentioned, but we barely tapped that inverted low volume node. So expected resistance off it, ended up breaking through it and finding support off it. It also aligned with VWAP, aligned with a 5-minute gap, a 30-minute gap. We inverted a 1 hour gap, inverted a 4 hour gap. So we had a lot of confluences in our favor. We were just joining in on the trend, and we managed our position accordingly. So we can actually go over how I managed this position. So you'll notice at first I have my stop down here. Okay. So I have my stop down here, right, which is my original stop. And then some people might see that first 5-minute candle and they're willing to move their stop to that wick. That's not what I did, okay? So I can actually show you where, I think it was this one. Cool. Do that. Yeah, that's what it was looking like. But my first trail, so I had my stop here, and I think I ended up, I was waiting for us to break through the point of control. I believe that's what I was waiting for. Let me just double check. So we're there, and we can see. Cool. So I think I was willing to trail after seeing this just steadily push to point of control. Didn't see a lot of sellers present. You could see some selling here, right? But I trailed. If you see here, that's me flipping time frames. I noticed the 15-minute looked really good. By the time I was gonna close, so it was, I think, yeah. Once this candle closed, I trailed. I trailed to that wick, mitigated about half of my risk, which I was risking like 220 if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, mitigated half my risk. Then this candle printed. I'm like, that's cool. We can probably hold the upper view up end, which is what we ended up doing. Once more, we can look at the ones the next time we trailed. I think buyers just started to come in heavy. Yeah, so this, it was started at like 11:20, and this ended up happening. So this took like 6 minutes. It just felt like an eternity just watching price slowly get there. But once we actually broke the IB high, that's when I trailed to that 50-minute candle. So the first trail was off a 50-minute candle closure. I guess you could say maybe it felt like an eternity, but I waited an extra 15 minutes. So this candle, back candle. So the first trail was at like probably 10:15, and then the next trail was near 11, well, not 10, sorry, around 11:15, and then the next trail was around 11:25, 11:30. So roughly 15 to 10 minutes is how long I waited to trail one more time, and I did it by trailing to the 15-minute wick, right? You can see here on the video, that's where I trailed. Alright, we'll get that push. I checked the 15-minute, it looked good, and yeah, then it just kind of took a while, and then I think I wasn't really thinking of taking partials at first, but when I saw price barely tap, it was like one tick off the 0.1 extension of the IB. I'm like, you know what? This looks good. It's a 2R. It's enough to cover. Like, I was doing the math quick in my head. Like, this is enough to cover my initial loss, and I can just leave a runner, right? I can just leave a runner. So there, I took a partial, and then I was just letting it. And then I noted, ideally, the shit rips at 12 because I got to log into work, my new remote job. So it was kind of taking its while. I added some emojis. I was just trying to have fun with it at this point. I was trying not to stress myself over it, because we're in profit. We've made back what we initially lost, and we could potentially end the day green. I think even if it stopped us out, we'd still be green on the day. But yeah, I noted CVD was decreasing. I interpreted that as people probably just trying to sell all-time highs. They're trying to avoid, they're trying to call the top, right? So yeah, Mazara. And then I think, didn't notice it, but we did trail. I think we trailed. I trailed somewhere in here. I think it's after taking the partial. Yeah. So I took the partial and then I adjusted. So once we actually hit that 0.1, so in this candle, that's where I trailed. I'm like, yeah, this is good enough. We've sustained that upper view up end. We have a couple 5-minute gaps that could hold us. And then, yeah, this is where I was waiting. Uh, this 5 minute gap, I think, held barely, and then we get a final push, and then we got up. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the trade. Same thing here. Da 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 da. Oh, I think I said move Bish, and then I said not that way. um, like I said, just trying to have fun. CVD decreasing, raw, falling asleep, and then that's it. That pretty much wraps it up. Something I also want to share that I'm pretty happy about is two things, actually. First thing, the Sabrina strat. My mentor taught me this. Sabrina Carpenter makes NQ pump. It's just a ongoing joke in the community over there. But yeah, I put the song on and ended up hitting TP. We were really close anyway, so it's like a no-brainer. But it's happened a few times here and there where he's in a trade and then Sabrina comes on and then price will pump. It's just funny. Um, but anyways, another thing I wanted to share, if I can find it. Let me see really quick. It's in this chat. Yeah, this is it. So this is the current state of my eval. End of the day, nearly 300 in profit, 293 with 30 cents, or 293 with some change, whatever you want to call it. We finally hit 1K on the eval, which I'm pretty proud of. We did have a day where we kind of overtraded a little bit, but it's all good. It happens. We recovered that day, and I think since then it's been solid trading days. Avoided poor trading conditions, or at least what I consider to be poor trading conditions, and it's just been steady growth since then. I'm pretty proud for hitting 1K on the eval. 1/3 of the way there. We do have to make 3K for us to pass the eval, so still a ways to go. But gonna try our best to avoid those type of blow up days where you just eat up previous day's profits or good trading days profits. And it's just, I'm proud of this because ever since I started trading futures evals, it's been like, it feels like a milestone for me because I don't think I've gotten a 50K eval to a 1K balance. I've gotten it to 900 and then blew it, but I don't think I've ever gotten to 1,000 with such like solid trading performance. I don't want to say like great, because there's a few things here and there that can be fixed, but it's been consistent. It's been solid, and it just shows. And yeah, it feels crazy because the closest I've gotten to passing an eval is being one trade away, but that's a forex eval. Those are different. With futures, I've never gotten it to 1,000, or at least I don't think. Um, but at least it feels like a really long time since I've been able to do that, and it feels great being able to do that with just consistent trading. And yeah, pretty excited to what the next couple of days could be like. Today's Wednesday, right? Let me double check. Yeah, so 2 more days left of the trading week. Pretty excited what tomorrow and Friday can bring. If not, still excited for next week. Gonna come back, try to do it again, try to bring that consistency, bring that good energy, bring that just solid, objective reasoning, and just trying to be as calm as possible. Keep that level-headed mindset. But yeah, pretty solid trading day. Hopefully this is the eval that we end up passing. It'd be pretty cool that I started this YouTube channel, and the first eval that I do on the YouTube channel is the one that I pass. I'm just saying, it'd be pretty cool. It'd be pretty cool. But anyways, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun, and hopefully I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.